Being honest does not automatically protect you. Being available does not automatically make people respect you. Being predictable does not automatically make life safer. In many rooms, those qualities can be turned into handles that other people use to move you. Not because honesty is wrong, but because honesty without boundaries becomes exposure. Availability without self-respect becomes access. Predictability without awareness becomes control. You may think you're simply being good, cooperative, and easy to work with, but some people read that as permission. This video is not about becoming manipulative, cold, or fake. It is about learning how to move through the world with more strategy, more emotional control, and less unnecessary vulnerability. Because the goal is not to stop being a good person. The goal is to stop being easy to use. Honesty is a strength when it is guided by judgment. But when you reveal everything too quickly, to everyone, in every situation, honesty turns into exposure. You give people your fears, your limits, your plans, your emotional triggers, and your weak points before you know whether they have earned that information. That is not integrity. That is unprotected access. This happens in ordinary moments. You tell a coworker how badly you need the job, and suddenly they know how much pressure you can tolerate. You tell someone every insecurity in the beginning of a relationship, and later they know exactly where to hurt you. You explain too much in a negotiation, and the other side learns where your ceiling is. The truth was real, but the timing was careless. The shift is not to lie. The shift is to become selective. You can be honest without being completely transparent. You can answer without revealing your whole strategy. You can be warm without handing over your private map. Mature honesty has boundaries. It knows the difference between truth and unnecessary disclosure. Predictability feels safe because it creates order. People know what to expect from you, and you know how to behave. But when your patterns become too obvious, they can be used against you. If everyone knows you always say yes, always explain yourself, always avoid conflict, and always need approval, then your behavior becomes easy to guide. You see this at work, in families, in friendships, and in relationships. The person who never pushes back gets the extra task. The person who always forgives gets tested again. The person who cannot tolerate silence overexplains until they weaken their position. The person who fears disappointment becomes responsible for everyone else's comfort. That is where predictability becomes a leash. You do not need to become unpredictable in a chaotic way. You need to stop being automatically available to pressure. Pause before responding. Say no without a speech. Let people wonder what you're thinking sometimes. A calm person with clear limits is not difficult. He is simply harder to control. Being available feels generous. It makes you feel useful, needed, and reliable. But when your availability has no limits, it stops being kindness and becomes self-erasure. People begin to assume your time is open, your energy is accessible, and your attention can be taken whenever they need it. What begins as help can slowly become expectation. This is why the most dependable person often becomes the most exhausted person. You answer messages immediately. You accept requests before checking your own capacity. You make space for everyone's emergency while your own priorities keep waiting. Then resentment builds, not because people asked, but because you never taught them where the line was. Real strength is not constant access. Real strength is controlled access. You decide when you're available, what you can give, and what you must protect. Your time is not rude for having boundaries. Your energy is not selfish for needing direction. The people who respect you will adjust. The people who only used you will complain. Overexplaining often comes from a desire to be understood, accepted, or seen as reasonable. You think that if you give enough context, people will respect your decision. But in many situations, too much explanation weakens your position. It gives others more places to argue, more details to challenge, and more emotional openings to pressure you. You say no, then explain for 5 minutes until the no sounds negotiable. You make a decision, then defend it so much that it sounds like you're asking permission. You set a boundary, then soften it with guilt until the other person knows you can be pushed. The problem is not your reason. The problem is that your delivery teaches people your decision is still open. A clear sentence is sometimes stronger than a long defense. You can say, "That does not work for me." You can say, "I am not available for that." You can say, "I will think about it and respond later." Short does not mean cold. Calm does not mean rude. A decision that needs constant defending may not feel like a decision to the person hearing it. Most people are uncomfortable with silence because silence creates pressure. They rush to fill it, explain it, soften it, or escape it. But silence is one of the most underrated forms of intelligence. When you stop reacting immediately, you give yourself time to see what is really happening. You notice tone, intention, insecurity, impatience, and hidden motives. In a tense conversation, the person who speaks first often reveals more than they planned. In a negotiation, the person who cannot hold silence may lower their own value. In conflict, the person who rushes to defend themselves may look guilty even when they are not. Words can be useful, but unnecessary words often expose the anxiety underneath. Practice letting a pause exist, not to intimidate, but to observe. Let the other person finish. Let the room breathe. Let your emotions settle before you answer. When you stop filling every space with words, your presence changes. You become less reactive, less readable, and more deliberate. Sometimes the strongest move is not what you say next. It is what you refuse to rush. Many people confuse adaptability with being fake. They think being real means showing the same version of themselves in every room, with every person, in every situation. But that is not always authenticity. Sometimes it is rigidity. A mature person understands context. He knows that different environments require different levels of tone, detail, energy, and access. At work, the way you speak to a direct results-driven person may need to be different from how you speak to someone emotional and relationship-oriented. In a negotiation, too much warmth can weaken your position. In a personal conversation, too much distance can create distrust. The problem is not changing your delivery, the problem is changing your values to be accepted. Adapt your presentation, not your principles. That is the difference. You can remain honest while becoming more precise. You can remain kind while becoming less exposed. You can remain yourself without giving every person the same level of access. Strategy does not require you to become false. It requires you to stop being careless with how you are. The thing you are most afraid to lose often becomes the thing that controls you. A job, a relationship, approval, status, comfort, or an image can become a silent chain when you believe you cannot survive without it. This is why attachment can make intelligent people behave weakly. They do not lack awareness. They lack the ability to walk away. You can see this when someone accepts disrespect at work because they are terrified of losing the position. Or when someone stays in a relationship where they are constantly devalued because being alone feels worse than being mistreated. Or when a person keeps agreeing with a group because rejection feels too expensive. Fear turns access into control. Detachment does not mean you stop caring. It means you stop surrendering your dignity to keep something. The person who can walk away does not need to threaten. His presence changes because his value is no longer begging to be chosen. When you are willing to lose what costs your self-respect, you become harder to pressure and easier to respect. People often lose power in a conversation by revealing their ceiling too early. They say exactly what they want, what they will accept, what they fear, what they cannot lose, and how far they are willing to go. They believe this makes the conversation simple, but in many situations it only gives the other person a map of how to limit them. This happens in salary talks, business deals, conflicts, and personal boundaries. You tell someone the minimum you will accept, and they treat that as the maximum they need to offer. You reveal how desperate you are, and suddenly patience disappears from their side. You explain every weakness in your position, and then feel surprised when the conversation moves against you. The smarter move is to protect your range. Speak with clarity, but do not donate your leverage. You can say you're evaluating the full situation. You can say you're considering value, growth, timing, and fit. You can ask what they had in mind. Let the other side reveal more before you reveal everything. Information is currency. Spend it carefully. Most people will not announce that they are testing your limits. They do it quietly. A small disrespect, a delayed response, a subtle demand, a favor that becomes expected, a joke that carries an insult. They watch how you respond, not always consciously but consistently. Your reaction teaches them what kind of access they are allowed to have. This is how patterns begin. You ignore the first violation because you do not want conflict. Then the second feels harder to address because now there is history. By the third, the behavior has become normal. You tell yourself it is not a big deal, but your body knows. Resentment is often the feeling of knowing you abandoned a boundary too many times. The answer is not aggression. The answer is early correction. Address small things while they are still small. Use calm words. Use clear limits. Do not wait until anger has to speak for you. A boundary stated early can sound peaceful. A boundary delayed too long often comes out as explosion. Self-respect is easier when it is practiced before resentment takes over. When your emotions control your reactions, people can learn how to move you. They know what makes you defensive, what makes you explain, what makes you chase, what makes you apologize, what makes you panic, and what makes you give in. Emotional reactivity turns you into a predictable system. Push the right button, get the same response. You see this when someone provokes you and you immediately defend yourself. When someone withdraws attention and you start chasing. When someone criticizes you and you abandon your position just to restore peace. The issue is not that you feel something, the issue is that every feeling becomes visible before you have chosen what to do with it. Emotional control is not suppression. It is the space between the trigger and your response. Take a breath, let the first impulse pass. Ask yourself what outcome you actually want. The person who can feel anger without becoming careless, fear without becoming submissive, and pressure without becoming desperate is difficult to control. Calm is not weakness. Calm is strategy under control. Kindness is valuable, but kindness without boundaries can be misunderstood as permission. When you keep absorbing disrespect, making excuses for people, and giving more chances than your peace can afford, others may stop seeing your kindness as strength. They may begin to see it as unlimited access. That is where a good quality becomes dangerous. This happens when you always understand everyone, but rarely expect anyone to understand you. You forgive quickly, but the behavior keeps repeating. You help even when you are drained. You stay calm while someone continues crossing the line. Eventually, your patience stops being respected and starts being used. Not because kindness is wrong, but because it was not protected. The mature response is not to become harsh. It is to become clear. Let your kindness have structure. Let your patience have limits. Let your generosity require respect. You can be good without being endlessly available for damage. A boundary does not cancel your kindness. It gives your kindness a place to survive. Many people speak with emotion before they speak with intention. They answer too quickly, reveal too much, explain too long, and enter conversations without knowing what outcome they want. Strategic communication is different. It does not mean manipulation. It means your words are guided by purpose instead of anxiety, guilt, or the need to be liked. You can lose position in a conversation without saying anything false. You lose it when your tone sounds desperate. You lose it when you volunteer weaknesses that were never requested. You lose it when you argue every small point and forget the larger goal. You lose it when you speak to release pressure instead of creating clarity. Before important conversations, pause and ask yourself what matters most. Do you need agreement, respect, information, closure, leverage, or a clear decision? When your goal is clear, your words become cleaner. You say less, but with more weight. You stop using conversation as emotional relief and start using it as deliberate movement. Being liked feels comfortable because it gives you immediate approval. People smile, include you, praise you, and make you feel safe. But being liked and being respected are not the same thing. You can be liked because you are useful, agreeable, easy to predict, and unlikely to challenge anyone. Respect usually requires something stronger. This is why some people are loved in the room but ignored when decisions are made. They are pleasant but not taken seriously. They are helpful but not protected. They are included but not considered powerful. They avoid tension to keep approval, then feel confused when others take their time, ideas, and energy for granted. Respect begins when your behavior shows that you have standards. You do not need to become rude or distant. You simply stop trading your position for temporary acceptance. Being liked can be pleasant, but respect gives you weight, and sometimes the price of becoming respected is being less available to people who only liked you when you were easy. In a world where people share everything immediately, controlled exposure becomes rare. You do not need to reveal every plan, every skill, every emotion, every weakness, or every next move to prove you are real. Some parts of you should be earned through time, trust, and context. What is revealed gradually often carries more weight than what is handed over instantly. This matters in work, relationships, and personal growth. If you show every ability at once, people adjust quickly and treat it as normal. If you share every private detail too early, mystery disappears and leverage weakens. If you announce every goal before it has roots, you invite opinions before you have momentum. Exposure without timing can reduce value. Controlled exposure is not secrecy for attention. It is discipline with access. Let people discover your depth through consistent evidence. Let your results speak before your explanations. Let your growth appear through action, not constant announcement. The right people will respect what is revealed with patience. The wrong people will demand access they have not earned. Many people waste power trying to prove they are right. They argue, defend, correct, explain, and chase the feeling of intellectual victory. But winning an argument does not always move your life forward. Sometimes it only feeds your ego while damaging the outcome. Strategic intelligence asks a better question. What result am I actually trying to create? You can be right and still lose the room. You can prove a point and still destroy trust. You can expose someone's mistake and still fail to solve the problem. This happens in meetings, relationships, leadership, and conflict. The person obsessed with being right often becomes blind to timing, influence, and consequence. The stronger move is to care more about the outcome than the applause. Choose words that move the situation forward. Let people save face when it helps the mission. Focus on solving, not performing. This is not weakness, it is control. A person who can release the need to win every argument becomes harder to distract and more likely to win what actually matters. One of the strongest forms of power is the ability to walk away without collapsing. Many people lose control because they are too attached to being chosen, accepted, included, or understood. The moment someone senses that you cannot leave, they also sense where your leverage ends. Neediness, even when hidden, changes how people treat you. This appears in negotiations, relationships, friendships, and work. You accept poor treatment because you fear losing the connection. You accept weak offers because you fear losing the opportunity. You keep explaining yourself because you fear being misunderstood. Slowly, people learn that the fear of loss will make you bend. That is when your attachment becomes someone else's advantage. Walking away does not mean quitting every time something becomes uncomfortable. It means knowing the difference between difficulty and disrespect. It means having enough self-command to leave what consistently lowers your value. The person who can walk away calmly does not need to dominate the room. His freedom speaks before he does. Your information is one of your most valuable forms of currency. Your plans, fears, goals, weaknesses, relationships, financial pressure, and emotional triggers all shape how people understand your position. When you give that information to the wrong person, you may not notice the cost immediately, but later you realize they know exactly where to press. This is why careless openness can become dangerous. You tell people what you're building before it is stable, and they attack it with doubt. You share private pain with someone who later uses it in conflict. You reveal how desperate you are, and the negotiation changes. You thought you were being sincere. They were collecting a map. Protecting information is not paranoia, it is maturity. Share in layers, let trust prove itself over time. Give people access based on character, not closeness, charm, or convenience. You can be genuine and still be private. Not every thought needs an audience, not every plan needs witnesses. Not every weakness deserves a microphone. Many people enter rooms focused only on how they will be seen. They think about what to say, how to impress, how to appear confident, and how to prove their value. But strategic intelligence begins before speaking. It begins with observation. Who has influence? Who interrupts? Who listens? Who reacts emotionally? Who controls the pace without needing attention? When you fail to read the room, you reveal yourself too early. You speak with the wrong tone to the wrong person. You share ambition with someone threatened by ambition. You joke in a room that values seriousness. You give too much detail to someone who only respects results. Then you wonder why your message did not land. The problem was not only what you said, it was when and where you said it. Before you reveal, observe. Let the room teach you its rules. Listen for what people reward and what they punish. Notice who speaks from ego and who speaks from competence. then choose your move. A calm observer has an advantage because he is not rushing to be understood. He is learning how the game is actually being played. Strategy becomes dangerous when it loses character. Learning how people think, how pressure works, how silence creates leverage, and how information shapes power can protect you. But without values, those same tools can turn you into the kind of person you once needed protection from. Intelligence without character does not create strength. It creates damage with better language. This is where some people lose themselves. They learn how to influence, then start using influence to feed ego. They learn how to stay calm, then use calmness to hide cruelty. They learn how to reveal less, then become dishonest. They learn how to win, then forget why the outcome mattered. The tool was not the problem. The absence of principle was, the goal is not to become dangerous to innocent people. The goal is to become difficult for manipulative people. Use strategy to protect your peace, defend your boundaries, communicate with precision, and build a stronger life. Character decides whether your intelligence becomes a weapon against others or a shield around what matters. The final lesson is simple but easy to misunderstand. Becoming harder to control does not mean becoming cold, distant, arrogant, or unreasonable. It means you stop giving people automatic access to your reactions, your time, your fear, your guilt, and your private information. You remain human, but you are no longer unguarded. Some people will not like this change. They preferred you when your yes was easy, your explanations were long, your silence was uncomfortable, and your boundaries were weak. They may call you different, difficult, or distant, but often what they really mean is that you are no longer as easy to move. That reaction tells you something important. You can still be kind. You can still be loyal. You can still be generous, warm, honest, and present. But now those qualities come with judgment. You give them where they are respected, not where they are exploited. That is the balance. Become hard to control without becoming hard to love. Become strategic without losing your soul. Being too honest, too available, and too predictable makes you easy to control because it gives other people access before they have earned trust. The answer is not to become manipulative. The answer is to become mature, speak with intention, protect your information, let silence work, stop over-explaining decisions that only require clarity, set limits before resentment has to speak for you. Learn to adapt without betraying your values. Learn to walk away without needing to prove a point. The world will not always reward the person who is easiest to read, but it will respond differently to the person who is calm, observant, disciplined, and guided by self-respect. Stay good, but stop being careless. Stay honest, but stop being exposed. Stay kind, but stop being endlessly available. If this gave you clarity, subscribe for more calm, practical reflections on discipline, mindset, emotional control, strategy, and self-respect.